All right, let's get stuck in, guys. So, firstly, I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who is on the call live at the moment. This is quite cool. I really enjoy these conversations, and it's cool to see, so many of you sign up. As I mentioned before, we had about 70 or 75, I think it was. In the end, people sign up to the list, which you never expect everyone to jump on live. But as I mentioned before I hit record, everyone that isn't here live will be watching this on the replay anyway. But again, I just wanted to say thanks for jumping on. Means that I don't have to talk to myself for the next 45 to an hour, which is quite nice. But at the same time, it is cool to see that so many people, and it's more and more because I've done a fair few of these now, but more and more people are starting to, I guess, have interest in this, but more so prioritize themselves and that self improvement, personal development. I would say a year or two ago, it would be quite rare to have this many people interested in topics like this. And I think it's quite cool now that more and more people are. I myself, which I'll get into my story quickly in a second, but early on, before I come across any of this personal development stuff, I would have been the last person to do something like this. Whereas now, I think it's just extremely valuable. And in the end of the day, all of these things, whether it's training in the gym, your nutrition, mindset work, whatever it may be, in the end of the day, it's all working towards becoming a better version of yourself. And that can never be a bad thing, right? And so I know some of you on the call tonight have done either one, two, maybe even a few of these calls with me. And so I always say, like with personal development in particular, it's very much like the gym. You don't just go to the gym once or go for a month and have a really consistent month and then just go, fuck yeah, had a good month, so I don't need to go to the gym anymore. Done doing those exercises. We're all sweet. I got good at them, so I'm never going to do them again. I think with personal development in particular, it's things that you can continue to revisit, continue to redo. And a lot of the fundamental stuff we'll touch on tonight, I do very regularly, at least once a month. It's some of these things daily for sure. But I feel like you can never get too good at it. And as you continue to evolve and grow and improve your level of consciousness and awareness, which we'll touch on, ultimately you're becoming a new and improved version of yourself, which means there's going to be more limiting beliefs. There's going to be more things that pop up as time goes on that maybe once weren't there, which is fine, which is a good thing, right? It's a never-ending thing. Like I said, it's not like you can do this for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and then you're like, you're sweet, you're done, you're the perfect human, and you never have to do this shit again. I think that's the beauty of it, is there's always something that can improve. And so, as I mentioned, the stuff we're going to work through tonight, I'm going to share as much as I possibly can, but I want to make sure that it's practical and tangible for you guys to work through as the call goes on, and you can take something away from it. Now, I'd be crazy to say that within the next 45 to an hour, I can list off every single thing that you can do and give you all the answers to everything. But this is an extremely great place to start. And again, I know I've mentioned it, but for those on the call that have done some of the stuff we're going through now, I'm very grateful that you're here again, and don't think that because you've done it once that you don't need to do it again. Every time you go through these fundamentals, you tend to find something different or new or evolve even more. And when it comes to our frequency, which we will touch on, the higher the frequency that we are at, the more we continue to attract things of the same frequency and match to that high frequency. And I find every time you do work like this, it really lights you up. And hopefully by the end of this call tonight, all of you guys are feeling very high frequency, excited, motivated, and that's an incredible feeling to have. And it always leads to you attracting more great things. And so again, we can never do enough of that stuff. Now, quickly before we dive in, I don't want to spend too much time talking about myself, but I will mention that, look, I'm not the most fucking qualified mindset coach in the world by any means. But the stuff I'm sharing with you guys, I have done personally and I've experienced personally. And that's why I'm doing this. Like, that's why I shifted from just doing strength conditioning and nutrition stuff over to doing more mindset and personal development, because of the growth that I saw personally in everything, right? Like in terms of attracting relationship, in terms of the lifestyle I get to have, my career, finances, materialistic stuff, the whole thing. And it wasn't until I understood all of these fundamentals that everything started to shift for me. And so hopefully you guys can have that same experience as well. But my journey with all of this personal development stuff realistically began in about 2017. I'd done absolutely nothing when it came to mindset, to be honest, apart from just training really hard and being very disciplined with my nutrition. And I think there is obviously a massive level to that, which requires mental resilience, of course. But I had no understanding of the law of attraction, law of vibration, intentions, meditation, any of that type of shit. But in 2017, I set myself the goal to meditate every single day. And because I'd tried it once when I was at a relatively lowish point, I was super stressed and anxious a lot of the time, overtraining, overworking, and just had a shit mental health, to be honest. And I felt for the first time this like sense of peace and calmness, and so I wanted more of that. And so I meditated every day for 2017, and throughout that period, throughout that journey, I guess you start to go down the rabbit hole a bit. I read my first book on personal development, and had this feeling of just being like completely lit up by the stuff that I was reading. And again, hopefully some of the stuff we covered tonight gives you guys that same feeling. And then through over that the next, what's that, 2017 until now, I continue to dive down that rabbit hole of understanding meditation properly and how we can really utilize it daily. Started hiring mentors, started to understand breath work, really did a deep dive on the law of attraction, the law of vibration, and starting to look at what is one of the key things, in my opinion, limiting beliefs, and how they drastically kind of hold us back and how they can impact us in many ways. And so throughout all of this process of me developing myself, it became something that I was very excited and passionate to talk about with clients, friends, and everyone. And so, in my opinion, one sentence, one page of a book, 30 seconds of a podcast or a video, or hopefully a point in tonight's call can be the one thing that literally changes your whole life forever. And I know that sounds a bit hectic, a bit extreme, but it really can be. And so I encourage you guys after tonight, I'll send through some follow-up stuff for you to continue to exploring yourselves, but just continue on the journey of just trying to better yourself in whatever way that is. There's no one size fits all. You don't have to do any of the shit that I tell you tonight. This is just me explaining to you what has really worked for me, and how it's changed my life. And like I said, in every way possible. Like, I feel like such a different version of myself now than what I ever used to be. And it excites me to know that by continuing to do this work, I can continue to evolve and grow and just attract an incredible life. And so that leaves us where we are tonight. And as I said, I've done a fair few of these now. And a quick little story before we dive in, probably around the importance and the power of frequency. When I did my first mastermind of like this is a free one. I did a paid mastermind, which went for 4 weeks. That was the first ever bit of mindset coaching that I did. I promoted it for like a month. At this stage, my podcast and online coaching and stuff was doing quite well. It was the first time I'd done any personal development coaching. And so I promoted it for a month, got to the first call and had 0 signups. Right now, talk about taking a massive fucking hit to the ego. But at the same time, when I look at it now, like I do with every other difficult time in my life, it has been one of the best things that happened because it's a massive learning curve. But at the same time, I had to remind myself, hey, this is the same thing that happened when I started PT. This is the same thing that happened when I started my podcast or when I started online coaching or whenever I first ever played basketball or basically fucking anything. You can't ever possibly expect to be great at something when you first start. And so it's really important to broaden your time horizon of when you expect to be good at something. But at the same time, just embrace failure or let go of the fear of judgment, the fear of failure, and just kind of go all in. Like I'm telling you now, whenever you start anything new, if it's off the back of tonight's call or if it's in any situation, you're most likely going to be shit when you start. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's normal. People, for some reason, think that like when we start something new, it's a bad thing if we're no good at it. Like, fuck do we expect? Like, of course that's going to be the case. But the difference between people who end up really maximizing on that and people who don't is the ones who have a setback or a failure and think that, oh, I'm no good at this, so this isn't for me. Right. Whereas if you have the different mindset of going, I'm allowing myself to be shit at something for a fairly long period of time, then you stop being over analytical about everything. You stop judging yourself and give yourself permission to go all in. And so I had the decision to make. I could either post on social media and pretend that I sold the whole mastermind out and act like an absolute mad dog and just be like, how good's this? Even though in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck? No one signed up. Or what I did instead is I posted on social media and this is a big vulnerability piece, which I think is extremely powerful. I posted on social media, hey, I marketed this for a month and had 0 signups. Here's what I'm going to do next to make sure that either this doesn't happen again, or to use this as something to look back on when one day I'm in a position where I'm speaking with 1,000 people on a call instead of 0. And so the very next mastermind, and I was working with my mentor on this at the time as well, I really started to understand the law of vibration, which we'll touch on a little bit tonight. And so coming into that mastermind, I had the decision to make, because I am a massive believer in the fact that we attract more of what we focus on. All right. And when you're looking at the version of yourself that you're trying to become, you need to think, act, behave, and feel like that future version of you before it's happened. And we'll touch on that in a second. And so coming into the next mastermind, I said, all right, I'm going to approach this with the highest frequency possible, basically imagining that I have 1,000 people signed up to this mastermind, regardless of whether there's 1, 2, 3, or 0. And I'm going to show up and do each and every single call and market it the same way every time with that same energy. Now, I think I had maybe 6 or 7 people sign up, right? Nothing groundbreaking. But I went into every single one of those calls as if it was literally in front of 1,000 people and gave it my absolute best, showed up with the highest frequency and energy possible, and did not get bothered by the fact that it wasn't what I wanted it to be yet. Right? Because we can't wait for something to happen in order to change. You see it in fitness all the time. People are like, oh, I'll change my habits once I've lost the weight, or I'll do this once I get good at this, or I'll be better with my spending once I get a better job, or whatever the fuck it is. But you're a complete mismatch to the outcome you're saying you want. I can't expect to get 1,000 people on a call if every time I show up to my call, I half-ass the effort because I'm unhappy with there only being 3 or 4 people on it. And so throughout that 4-week period, I literally had people signing up 2 weeks in, and I hadn't even promoted it in 4 weeks. And I truly believe it was because I was staying at that frequency of not judging whether it was a win or a loss based off how many people are on the call. I was showing up with the same habits, the same energy, the same level of frequency and everything of that version of me that was already where I wanted to be. All right, and I'll probably skipped ahead a little bit there in regards to talking about law of vibration, but we will get to it. Anyway, takes us to today, and what I want you to first understand before we dive into like these first kind of few steps and the law of attraction stuff we'll touch on is whatever you're experiencing in your life at the moment is purely an accumulation of your thoughts, actions, behaviors, and habits. All right, so we are 100% responsible for whatever our circumstance is in life at the moment. And so that is just a different way of saying that your life is literally a mirror. And so if you're unhappy with the reflection of your life, then you need to change something from what you're doing in order to change that reflection, in terms of what language am I using? Like, how am I speaking to myself and others? What are my habits that I'm doing daily? What are the thoughts that I'm having daily? What are the actions I'm taking daily? They are all the things that accumulate to be responsible for whatever you're going to experience in life. And so once you understand that, you may look at life and go, yeah, but I haven't really been able to achieve much, or I'm not happy with this, I'm not happy with that. And I can guarantee you it's because you genuinely don't think that you're capable of any more than that. Yeah, what we focus on is what we'll experience more of. Now, whether the old saying of like whether or not you believe you can or whether or not you believe you can't, either way you're right, is 100% true. If I wake up each and every single day saying I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'll probably fail at this, I'll never have enough money, I'll never have the car that I want, I'll never have the right partner, like it's exactly fucking what I'm going to get. What I am putting out is exactly what I'm going to experience. And that's not to say that as soon as I change my tone or as soon as I change all the stuff I'm doing, that instantly your life's going to look drastically different, but it will start to shift. And so when we think of the law of attraction, and again, I've explained this to some of you guys before, an easy way to think of it is like Facebook ads or paid advertising. Okay. And we're going to talk on the importance of intention in a minute when you guys start to set your own intentions here. But when we set an intention, when we decide what we genuinely want, because that's the other thing. Most people in life literally don't even know what they want, but they're disappointed with what they've got. Like how many people have gone, oh, like, I'm not happy with my job, I'm not happy with life, whatever it is, even in the gym with fitness goals, people are unhappy with their physique but not once did they ever genuinely decide what it is, the outcome that they wanted specifically. So we have a thing called a RAS, reticular activation system, which is like a level of consciousness and awareness of what we're actually aware of, right? Think about when you've decided to buy a new car or something. Decide you want this car, then you go outside, and then every second car you see is this one that you've just decided you want to buy. Those cars have always been there, but we've just never been aware of them. Now, the way that it's similar to Facebook ads is that when you go on Google and you type in whatever, you want to buy a new pair of shoes, specifically you type in what shoe you're looking for so you can see what shops they're in. And then all of a sudden you see ads for fucking weeks of these pair of shoes. Everywhere you go, you're seeing ads for shoes or the shop that you looked at or whatever. Obviously, it's not a coincidence. It's you're being retargeted with marketing, but it's very similar to when we set an intention. We're now consciously aware of what we want. We're actually putting thought to it. If it means something to us and we genuinely care about it, we're most likely going to follow through with it. Just like you'll most likely buy the pair of shoes once you've seen an ad for the 500th time in 3 weeks and you still want the shoes. Okay. And so what I'm trying to get at is that it's extremely important for you guys to set intentions, not only just in the morning for your day, but more importantly, in terms of what you actually want. And when we do the process of setting intention, unfortunately, most people, and this used to include me as well, and sometimes I still need to catch myself out doing this. When we set an intention, we set an intention based off what we think we can do, or what makes sense, or what other people are doing, or what everyone else around us thinks we can do, or what we think we can actually figure out how it would work. I need you guys to get rid of all that shit. And what I mean is that you need to start thinking bigger. Like I said to you before, the reason your life looks the way it does right now, and it doesn't say does not to say there's anything wrong with your life now, but it's because of our level of thinking and what we've been exposed to. So by me going and paying an absurd amount of money to work with a mentor, the big thing for me in terms of doing that is because I'm now being exposed to different ways of thinking or different results or things that I would never have even been able to fucking imagine, right? Even when I look at my life now, before I moved to Melbourne, I hadn't been exposed to any of this shit, whether it be money, materialistic stuff, jobs, people, environments, any of that. I'd never been exposed to it. So it wouldn't even make sense for me to have any part of me that would believe it's possible for me because it didn't even make sense to me. But by being in this different environment and exposing myself to different things, it now becomes something where I'm like, fuck, this might, like, maybe, why can't I do this? And so my level of thinking has expanded. So now all of a sudden, because I'm allowing myself to believe that these things are possible, shit starts to change. All right. And so again, if you think about, I know we don't always have to use materialistic stuff, but think about a material item. If all you'd ever been exposed to, let's use a car for example, right? All you'd ever been exposed to was just, I don't know how to put this in a normal way without it making it sound weird, but if all you'd ever been exposed to is one level of living, right? So again, I'll use myself, grow up small town, one level of living, and there's nothing wrong with it, but that's all I've been exposed to. You're not really ever going to see a fucking Ferrari or McLaren or something drive through where I grew up, and got a couple of people on the call from there as well. Nothing wrong with it, but it's just not normal. Okay, it's not common, so it's not. I haven't been exposed to it. For me to think when I still live there, oh, one day I could own a Ferrari. There's no part of me that even believes that because I haven't even seen anyone else do it. Whereas all of a sudden I'm training clients who are turning up for training in cars like this, or I'm in Melbourne and I'm networking with people who have multiple cars like that. All of a sudden you're like, oh, hang on a second, this is a normal thing for people. And so your level of thinking now has changed. That's not possible if you're not exposed to it. And so by being in groups like this, by doing personal development or listening to certain podcasts or watching interviews, getting a mentor, whatever it may be, that is the whole premise of, you are a product of your environment. And so it's 100% true. Try and always put yourself in a position where you are allowing yourself to be exposed to the next level of whatever that is. Could be career, could be absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be materialistic stuff, but it's like, if I'm being exposed to something that's not normal for me yet, eventually it's going to feel normal. And that's when shit starts to really change. And so with this first question here, and again, I know some of this stuff is basic, but it's okay. Like I said to you, I do this shit every single month, and it's been the biggest reason as to why I've been able to see such a massive shift. I think I may have just frozen here, so I'll give it 1 second in case I have. Perfect. I'm back. You guys can see me and hear me all right? Beauty. Sorry about that. Okay. So we're going to save like the understanding of the law of vibration until we get a few steps in, because it'll make more sense if it doesn't already. But what I want you guys to do for me now, we're not going to spend a heap of time on this. Again, I know some of you have done this with me before, and you can come back to this. I would highly recommend coming back to this after the call over the next couple of days, even, and spending time in this level of excitement and high frequency. Is I want you to spend just a couple of minutes writing down on a piece of paper what you truly want. Now, I would highly recommend that you do this for a number of different areas of life. I want you to do it for one for me right now. So the different pillars, for me, these pillars would be relationship, career, finances, personal, materialistic. I break it down into different categories, and I have one for each. Right now, I just want you to think of one of these different categories, and I want you to write down something that you would absolutely love to attract. And it does not have to make sense. So I'm going to repeat that. I want you guys to listen to this. You do not have to know the how or the when. Doesn't even have to fucking make sense. It shouldn't make sense. If it's something that you know exactly how to do right now, it's not big enough. If it's like, oh, I want to, I don't know, go to the AFL next weekend. That's not it, right? Because I know right now exactly how to do that. Go online, buy a ticket, and you go to it. I want you to think of something that is so far out of reach at the moment that it doesn't seem logical. Because again, we're having to level our way of thinking up. If you never allow yourself to think that big, then you will never attract anything on that level. So right now, as specific as possible, I want you to write down an intention of what you would like to attract or achieve, or a goal, an intention, whatever it may be as specific as possible. And it has to mean something to you. So if you can't think of anything right now, obviously you can just scribble whatever you want to do now, but I would come back to this and get very clear on this, because this is what's going to absolutely change shit for you. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to do this. If you have any questions, just chuck them in the chat box. So as you guys are doing that, I'm just going to repeat again. This doesn't have to make sense. And what I want you to also think about is that just because you have done something for a long period of time does not mean that you can't do something else, or that you have to do anything in alignment with that. I'll even use my old man as an example. He doesn't know shit about any of this manifesting stuff or law of attraction or anything, but here's a good example of this. He'd wanted to be a cop like his whole life, and he tried to when he was younger, and whatever, something happened, and he didn't end up doing it, right? So he ended up starting his own plastering business for like 30 years. And once he was already 50 years old, he decided, fuck that, I want to do what I've always wanted to do. And he became a policeman. And now he's been a cop for like 7 or 8 years. To me, that is like the coolest shit ever. Because it's like so many people continue to show up and do the same shit day in, day out, and complain about it 24/7, but don't do anything to change it. And so while you're writing down these intentions, it's important to understand that this isn't you don't just write this shit down and then wake up tomorrow and then all of a sudden it's happened. Like any change, for any change to happen in life, in regardless of what it is, gym, finances, career, relationship, material stuff, where you live, whatever, for any change to happen, it's going to require discomfort. It's going to feel very unfamiliar. Okay. And there's going to be uncertainty and resistance. If you don't have any of these things when you're trying to make a change, there's fuck all change happening. All right. If you are comfortable, if it feels familiar, feels safe, and everything is just normal, chances are shit's not really changing. if I go to the gym and use the same weight on the same exercise for the same reps day in, day out, after a very short period of time, I'm not going to continue to progress. So it feels like I'm doing the right thing. It's like I'm going to the gym, ticking the box. But has my physique changed? Most likely not. The only way to change it is to lift a heavier weight or increase the intensity, do something that's going to be uncomfortable, feel unfamiliar, and have to lean into the resistance, quite literally in this case. That's how you see change. Now, what I also want to reiterate is that if you're unhappy with your current outcome, which is the case for a lot of people, and it could just be in one area of your life, you are responsible for changing it. Now, like I said, showing up, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result is literally the definition of insanity. And so a lot of this stuff is not meant to be comfortable, which is fine. It's not a bad thing. It's good. All right. So, because when we have an unfamiliar feeling, 9 times out of 10, that's when people go back to the old you. You go back to the old you because it's comfortable, even if it's not a circumstance that you're happy with. It's familiar, it's comfortable, you know what to expect. So we go back to it. But surprise, surprise, shit hasn't changed. So if you want something to change, be prepared to feel uncomfortable. That's awesome, Michelle. It's good stuff. So I'm assuming everyone has written down their intention now, right? Now, there's not a shitload of people on the call, but there's also too many people to come around and go through every single one of them. Otherwise, we'll be here too long. But what I will say is that I want you to come back to this after the call and refine it even further. Like I said to you before, I'll give you an example of this, right? You need to be clear on your intention. Okay, so if I've got Jaron, that's how I pronounce it, yeah? Sweet. If Jaron says to me, I want a new car, and that's his intention, and I show up at his doorstep tomorrow with a new car, which I'm sure he'd still be happy with, but it's some piece of shit that he doesn't even like. He got exactly what he asked for, but it's not what he wanted. Okay, that's a very simple but pretty easy example to understand. You have to be clear with what it is that you want. I can't say that I want to get in shape. Fuck does that mean? I have to say exactly what it is that I want. Because again, we're talking about RAS, we're talking about awareness, we're talking about manifesting law of attraction. Get very clear with what it is that you want. I work through with my mentoring clients at the moment we did a document like 2 weeks ago where I literally got them to, in terms of their finance stuff, go through and list out every single expense that they have for the month. Okay, so every expense they have for the month, and at the same time in their expenses column, list out the expenses that they would have if they were already the future version of themselves, right? So that may include a repayment for a car that you don't even have yet. It may include a payment for a software for your business that you don't have yet, but for you to have the business you want, you would need the software. We listed out every expense that you would need, and then we had another column that had desires. So that's like the things that you don't necessarily need, but it'd be really nice to have. We did all of these things purely to come up with an exact number of how much money they need to attract each month. So it doesn't mean that instantly they're just going to have this amount of money come into their account, but it's the same thing. Now they have a specific number that each week and each month, when they're writing down in their intention of like, I want to become financially free, or I want more financial abundance, whatever it is, it's not just some random shit. If I say I want a better financial outcome, if I have an extra $10 next week than I did this week, I'm more financially free than what I was last week, but it's not what I meant. Okay, so you got to get clear on these things, and it's really important. The next thing we're going to do, I'm not going to give you as long on this next one, but you're going to have to come back to this step. I want you to list out as many possible things that you can think of that would be required of you in order for that outcome to happen. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to know how you're going to get it. It means what are the actions, thoughts, behaviors, habits that would be aligned with someone who would make sense to have that outcome. Okay, so if you wrote down you want this dream house, right? You've written specifically where it is, what the house looks like, because that's the detail you need to go into. Some of these actions could be simple stuff like going and visiting a financial advisor to actually get my finances in order. It might be attending open homes in the area that you want to go to. It might be learning a skill so you can increase your income. It might be listening to podcasts so you understand more about the property market. It could be looking at what expenses you could get rid of at the moment that are going to allow you to put more money together. You get the picture. It also includes, like I said, the thinking and the language stuff too. I'll touch on that in 1 second, but I'll give you guys some time now. Literally just dot points, list out as much shit as you can. I'm going to give you guys literally 45 more seconds to do this. This is where we're thinking, how would that version of yourself that's already in the outcome you want, how would they think, act, behave, and feel? What would that look like if you were already there? Okay, what does it look like if you're already that version now? Like I said to you before, we can't wait to get something in order for ourselves to change because it doesn't make sense to have that outcome. All right, I'll get you guys to stop there. So just quickly on what I'm saying, and this kind of brings in, no, actually, I'll wait a second. We'll wait to the next step to talk on that stuff. But the next one I'll get you to write down for me now. Again, this includes the same format, right? So this is thoughts. This is where you're using your energy and your time. This is the things you're doing. This is the places you're spending time in and the people you're spending time with. List as many things you can think of right now that are out of alignment with that version of you. So this is what needs to be removed or reduced. Okay. If I've got someone who's written a clear goal of achieving 10% body fat in whatever, 12 weeks time at a certain body weight. And at the moment, all the content they consume online is about some garbage crap that has nothing to do with anything. And every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they go out in the piss with the boys. And every time they've had a little bit of an off day, they like shit. And every time they talk about themselves, they say that they can never get in the shape that they want to get in or nothing works for them. These are all things that are completely out of alignment with that version of them. So we need to remove that because a lot of the time when people want to attract or achieve something, they look at what they need to add in. But more often than not, it's actually what you need to get rid of. Because most of the time, the shit that you're doing at the moment is part of the reason as why you aren't actually getting to where you want to be. It's not the fact that you're not doing anything special. Like people are always looking for like this magic, this secret, like this secret skill or this secret strategy that no one else knows about. That's not the case. It's like, what are the things I'm doing, places I'm spending time in, people I'm spending time with that aren't going to move me closer to my goal? The people one is a big one. As I said to you guys, you are fully responsible for every part of your life. And so if you're intentionally spending time with people who are very low frequency people who talk badly about others and about themselves, have no motivation to do stuff, who have nothing to do with what you're saying you want, you don't need to cut them off, but you need to look at, okay, well, why am I wasting so much time and energy around these people when they're not bringing me closer to where I want to be? Like, it's not a bad thing for you to remove yourself a little bit for that if you actually give a shit about achieving your goal. You're the product of your environment. Remember that. Like, it's extremely important. So this kind of brings us to a point where we've got our intention, we've got we've reverse engineered the things that would be aligned with that version of us. Now, I want to quickly touch on that. This kind of brings in the law of vibration. I'm going to send you guys a link in the email with a proper breakdown of the law of vibration after this anyway. But the easiest way to think about the law of vibration is like a radio station. This is the same example I use all the time, but to me, it just makes sense. If I want to listen to a certain radio station in the car, let's say the frequency of the radio station is 101.5, right? And I get in my car and my radio in my car is tuned to 93.4. Would any of you guys expect to hear that radio station that you're trying to listen to if the frequency in the car was on a different channel? Most likely not. The only way to hear that station is to tune it into the same frequency. Now, I know this is a bit much to comprehend if you haven't heard this shit before, but every single thing, including us on this planet, is constantly in motion. It's vibrating at a certain frequency. Even the fact that you guys are able to sit here talking to me at the moment The only reason we're able to do this is because we're all on the same internet frequency to even be on this same call, right? And so, very simple example, and you would have all heard me talk about it before. High frequency realistically just means you feel good, right? And I always talk about the birthday example. When it's your birthday, doesn't matter what you've got on for the day, it doesn't matter how boring your day looks on paper, you'll just have a great day for no reason other than the fact that it's your birthday. You'll be happy, people will be nice to you, everything will feel easy, even if you've got boring shit to do at work, it won't bother you at all, and you'll just feel like you're floating through the day and stuff's happening for you. The only reason is because you've told yourself that you should feel good because it's your birthday. Okay, because no one, apart from people close to you making your day special and stuff, no one really cares that it's our birthday, apart from us. And so when you look at that, it's like, how come every day can't be like that? And the answer is it can. Okay. So what I said to you right at the start of the call, what you focus on is what you attract more of. It works both ways. If I'm always thinking, speaking, acting in a low frequency negative way, it makes sense for me to continue to attract more things on the same frequency. Now, when I say you need to be on a match for the frequency of the thing that you're trying to get, it doesn't mean you need to figure out some specific number of what fucking frequency you need to be at. It means you need to feel good and you need to align yourself with that outcome. Okay. And again, doesn't mean it's just going to happen overnight, but it means that you are now a potential match for what you're saying you want. Okay. And so the thing that you guys need to understand, and this is what's going to blow this whole thing fucking out of the water for you guys and really help you navigate your way to actually manifesting the intention you've written down. And this applies for every single pillar as well. When you're looking at your intention, what I want you to do, and I want you to write this down for me now, the answer to this question. I want you to sit here. This is going to feel pretty fucking weird, but bad luck, get over it. You guys are going to sit there for 10 to 30 seconds. I want you to close your eyes and think, like literally imagine and visualize what it would be like if that outcome that you wrote down had already happened. How would it feel? Like, I just want you to sit there. As I said, everyone's doing it, so no one can see it. Don't worry, everyone's got their eyes closed apart from me, and I'm not judging, promise. Close your eyes, think about what it would feel like for that thing to have already happened and genuinely try and feel what those emotions would be like if it had already happened. I'm going to be completely quiet for 30 seconds. I want you to spend time doing this for me. All right. Give me a thumbs up if it felt good. Give me a thumbs up if you felt nothing at all. Okay, good. You guys have all just experienced, obviously not to the full extent, but in some way or another, you've all just experienced having what you want. So literally, like physically and mentally, you already have what you're saying that you want. The only reason we ever want anything is because of how we think we'll feel when we get it. And so the reason why that little exercise is important is because I want you to write down now for me what emotions were attached to that. So when you say, when I said to you, I want you to feel what it would be like, just write down 3, 4, 5 different emotions that came up. I know it's a bit difficult just doing it for 30 seconds and we're just starting this stuff, so it's not going to be perfect. But if it had already happened, how do you think it would feel? Like, what would the emotions be? Okay, so the reason why this is important is because, and you guys will get a few things in the in the email afterwards that I want you, like a few tools, and I know some of you have probably already got them if you've worked with me before. But using things like meditation, using things like intentions, using things like literally doing what you did just then, literally just sitting in imagination, visualization, whatever it is, looking at what you've written down on your piece of paper, by you feeling the emotions, our brain and body don't know the difference between a thought and reality. All right. So if you think of that in the negative aspect, right? If you've had something that's happened like traumatic at some point in time, you can have triggers that come up that send your body into the exact same response as when it actually happened. The same thing can happen in the positive way. Now, the reason why that is important, those emotions that you felt just then are the frequency of the fucking outcome that you want. Okay. And so what I said to you before, you don't wait for the thing to feel the certain way. Michelle wrote in the comments before, you don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are a match to. Okay. And that's true. And so what I'm saying here is those things you wrote down in step 2, when you're trying to attract the outcome you want, if you're already walking around every single day, thinking, speaking, acting with your habits, like the version of yourself that is gonna that you would be if you had that outcome already, you are now a match to receive the outcome. I'll give you one more example of how that makes sense. If I'm saying that I want some successful, like I want this business, right? I've gotten really clear about, let's say, our new supplement company, right? We've got a very clear idea of what we want to do with our supplement company, right? It doesn't make sense right now, as in like I have no fucking idea how it's going to happen, but it will. For me to have that business, do you think that if I woke up today and just couldn't really be fucked, or like I looked at the sales today and we didn't have any sales, so I just kind of stopped giving a shit for a few days, do you reckon that if I was already in that position of what I'm saying I want to get to, do you reckon I would act like that ever? Or do you reckon I'd be able to do any of that shit ever? If I did that, the whole business would turn to shit. Or secondly, that would never even be the case, because if the business is getting where I want it to be, it'd feel awesome. It'd be like I'm almost expecting to look at our sales each day and see that there's a lot happening, or I'd be expecting to have growth in the business. Whereas if I'm sitting here feeling shit about the fact that it's not where I want it to be yet, that's not the same frequency at all. That's like the exact opposite. And so why, why would it make sense for me to attract that business if I'm acting like this every day? Does that make sense? Like, there's no reason why I would ever get to this point if I'm showing up each day at this point. Like, even if my reality hasn't changed yet, I can still show up and do the things that I would be doing if the business got to that point. And this applies for everything. Health and fitness, easy example. You can follow a 10-week program and just do the things and feel like shit if you don't do the things and not enjoy any of the things and just do them purely because you have to. Doesn't mean you're going to be a healthy, fit person at the end of the 10 weeks. You might get a result, but most likely you're going to go back to square one because you haven't changed. Whereas if you said at the very beginning of your health and fitness journey, how would I feel? What would I do? Who would I hang out with? How would I speak about myself? How would I think about the gym? How would I think about my food if I was already the healthiest, fittest version of myself? Let me start doing that now. And you broaden your time horizon. You're not constantly coming back to check whether or not you're healthy and fit, because if you're already fit, you wouldn't be fucking checking to see if you're fit. Like if I have a dream car that I'm trying to attract and I'm trying to beat the frequency of having it, I would never be coming to check to see whether I've got it. Or I'd never be like feeling shit because I don't have it, because I would already fucking have it. And so what I'm trying to get at is that the most important and the biggest shift that you will see is if you can embrace, embody that level, that version of you now. Okay. And it's not stupid. It's not crazy, any of that stuff. It makes sense. You're now giving yourself the best opportunity to attract that. And like I said to you, whenever we feel good, we attract more good things. Like whether it's more positive people, we attract more positive outcomes, we attract opportunities, we attract fucking ideas, shit that just comes to our head because we're feeling good. Tell me any time something great has happened when you have been feeling like shit and thinking negative things, saying negative things, acting in a negative way. Not once has something positive or some great thing just randomly happen when you're intentionally being in that low frequency, because there's no way for it to happen. You're at a complete mismatch to good things happening. And so the last kind of step with all of this stuff in terms of setting our intention is you have to allow it to happen now. And that means you don't force it, you don't control it. And that doesn't mean that we just, as I said before, it doesn't mean you write this down and then tomorrow you just go like, all right, sweet. Then we just fucking kick back for a few weeks and just see if anything shows up. No, it means that you just don't come back to check all day, every day. Think of it like the damn wall analogy. This is what I use with my clients a lot. you're compounding the investments into that future version of you, and you're not coming back to check, because eventually, when the time is right, it will happen. Most of the time, for almost every single person here, I can guarantee that some of the best things that have ever happened in your life, you haven't had to force them. They've just happened because you've been in alignment with them happening, and they've just happened. Like, think of a relationship, perfect example. Two people on the same frequency meet each other, and there's a connection. And that's why you feel so great when you're at the beginning of a relationship, because you've got two high frequency people who are a match. Now, the dam wall analogy is, if you've got a water dam, you're on the outside, the water's on the other side. It never looks like anything's happening, but the water is gradually climbing and climbing and climbing behind the wall, even though nothing fucking seems to be happening on your side. But if you look at that and you're like, oh, well, nothing's happening, so I'll either change my goal, or I'm going to feel shit for a few days, or I'm going to complain about all this stuff, then the water stops, because you've stopped investing and compounding that increase in the water. But if you just continue to show up as if it's already happened, then you know that eventually the water has to either come over the top or break through the wall. And when it does, you'll be like, holy shit, how good is this? And it'll happen when you're least expecting it. But if you try and control the outcomes, that's when you block the flow of what's meant to happen. Is that all making sense? Maybe a head nod or something, if that makes sense. Yeah. Sweet. And so now you just got to think of this stuff like a game, right? And again, like I said to you guys, like, there's a million things we can talk about, but I think this is the thing that really makes the biggest shift, particularly at the beginning. Think of it like a game. And what I mean by thinking of it like a game is, how can I stay at the highest frequency possible? So that means getting really consciously aware of how you speak to yourself and how you speak to others. Okay, just basically think that anything negative, that's thoughts, actions, behaviors, language, anything negative is low frequency. Anything positive is high. And so what makes you feel good? Okay, some of the things I work on with the athletes I'm working with at the moment on game day is, how can you just rock up to the game feeling fucking good as? Nothing to do with actually football or basketball or anything. It's like, you've trained your whole life for this shit. Nothing you do today is going to make you a better footballer or a better basketballer for the game this afternoon. But if you show up to the game feeling really good already, you're going to reach flow state. You're going to attract these good things because you feel good. Whereas if you're going into the game stressed, anxious, negative because you made a mistake in the first quarter or whatever it is, then you can guarantee you're going to attract more of those low frequency things. And so it's about, how can I feel good as often as possible? And so some of the things I'll put in the email are the things that I'd highly recommend. And again, there's no one size fits all. This is just the tools. You want to look at things that make you feel good. So is it training? Is it eating well? Is it watching stand-up comedy or taking your dog for a walk or fucking anything? Like, it's going to be different for everyone. But some of the key tools that I find really helpful, one is meditation. And what I want you to understand with the meditation is, you're going to use it with the purpose of what we just spoke about. You're not doing, and I mean, use meditation for whatever it is that you want to use it for, right? I'm not telling you how to meditate. But what I am saying is that if you sit in a meditation with the intention of feeling the feelings of your outcome being done, then realistically, you're starting your day, or whenever you do your meditation, you're finishing that meditation as the version of yourself that you need to be. And so you can use it as a tool. Breath work's great. Intention setting is great. All of these things, all these tools are great. The main purpose of the tools is, how can I feel as high frequency as possible? Now, I want to remind you guys again, just before we kind of like wrap up in a minute, like, you have to change the way you are thinking. Okay. If you want something to change, or if you're unhappy with something and something's not the way you want it to be, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect it to be different. And so if you think of absolutely everything in this whole entire world I know it sounds pretty like corny, but it was literally once just a thought. Before someone thought of it, it was nothing. And so that applies for whatever it is you're trying to attract as well. If I'm telling myself every day, let's say even for a job, right, or in terms of how much money you can make in your job, or just your life in general, we don't even have to know how it's going to happen. If I tell myself that, like, oh, this is the limit, this is the limit of what I can do, then that will be the limit of what you can do. But what if right from the start that wasn't a limit? What if your thought and your genuine belief is that the limit was fucking 4 times as high? How do you know that you couldn't have attracted that? You don't, because you've always told yourself that this is the limit. And so you don't know what you can attract or change until you allow yourself to believe it. Right. And obviously that's where the limiting beliefs and stuff start to come into play as well. And so that's something that you can potentially look into also. And if I've got some content on that, I'd love to share with you guys too. But I think it's just really, really important to look at how can I start to normalize shit that's not normal. Like I said to you, with my business mentor, it's like having conversations with him or meeting people who are doing great things. I love being in those environments, or I love having those conversations because it normalizes something that was once not normal for me. And when I literally look at every single thing that I'm doing and every single thing that I am lucky to experience now, it was not normal at one point in time, but now it is. And so it's just a rinse and repeat. It's like, what do I want to change, or what? And this is the thing, always come back to thinking like a kid. A little kid, they'll think in their imagination, like, oh, I'm fucking playing cricket on the MCG on Boxing Day. And they're literally like in their living room and they're like 2 years old. Well, maybe not two, a little bit older if they know about cricket and Boxing Day, but you get the point. They're thinking about something and they're playing like an imaginary, whatever it is, and they genuinely feel like it's happening. Like they're experiencing it for real, because they don't have a part of their brain going, oh, that's ridiculous. I can't do that. Or like, that wouldn't make sense. I don't know how to do that. They never think of that shit. That's the energy that you need to be in. Like, that is the best energy to be in, because you do not fucking know what you're capable of if you're always thinking the same thing. And so allow yourself to think big and like get excited by things. All right. Because again, I'm just going to reiterate, like, you don't know what you're capable of until you allow yourself to believe it. All right. As soon as you've got the belief, it is now a genuine potential in the universe for you to attract it. And as long as you align yourself with the outcome, as long as you align yourself with that version of you, it will happen. That's not up to you when it happens, though. It's just continue to align yourself with it, and don't judge absolutely everything as like, okay, well, this is good, this is bad, this is working, this is not working. It's all working for you. Like everything happens for a reason, right? I'm a big believer in that. Like if I look at all the worst things that have ever happened to me or for me, they've all led to the best things. And so if things don't work out the way you're expecting or wanting them to, maybe they weren't meant to work out that way. Yeah, it's never going to be this linear fucking path that we think it's going to be. It's going to be all over the place. But look for those signs and take them and just keep moving with it, with the intention at the top of your mind all the time of everything working for you. All right. Hopefully that's made some sense. How's everyone feeling? Good? Give me a thumbs up if this has made sense and you're feeling good about the stuff we've just spoken about. Awesome. That's the whole point. That's what I really wanted for you guys to get out of this. And yeah, hopefully you got some stuff to take away and use. I think again, I would love for you to go through these again tonight in each different category, and just it should be fun. It should be exciting when you're coming up with this stuff. Like I said, you're almost trying to get into like a childlike imagination state of like feeling what it would be like for it to already happen, and embodying that version of yourself now. And that's how this shit changes. We're not waiting for something to change in order for us to change. And this is a big takeaway. If you can get to the point where through thought and intention alone, you're able to feel the way that you would if your outcome had happened, now you're not relying on anything, anyone, anywhere in order to make you feel a certain way. All right. If you need fucking good weather to feel good and bad weather makes you feel shit, or someone to be nice to you to feel good, and when someone's rude to you, you feel shit, you have zero control over your life. You're literally like a yo-yo. Each day you're just showing up and circumstances are dictating and determining whether or not you are happy, which is nuts when you think of it. So change perspective a little bit, be intentional about what your frequency is, and things will start to really change. So thank you so much for jumping on, guys. I really appreciate you being on here. And for those that are watching the replay, if there is any questions or feedback, whatever, feel free to respond to the email or the text, however it gets sent out. But yeah, thanks for being here, guys. And if there's any follow-up stuff, as I said, I'm going to send out this email. So feel free to let me know how you found it, any other questions or any feedback. and we can kind of go from there. Sweet. Thank you guys.